Hey, welcome to the Three Rural White Guys podcast. My name is Mike Heaton, one of your co-hosts, here with Kellen Gracie. No Jacob Dodds.
Hello.
There's Kellen.
Hey.
Jacob Dodds is out. He's on vacation.
Jacob is on vacation.
Yeah,
We'll be down to just two of us.
Yeah,
today.
little trip, I believe, up to. I'm not. We shouldn't tell people because I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. People tell people where they go on
Yeah.
vacation. He's having fun with his kids. We
Yeah.
saw some cool stuff. He's really. I didn't know he's so big. He's doing air show kind of stuff. Going to see planes and military stuff. He's sort of into that.
That's cool.
Are you into that at all? You've seen any of those kind of ever toured like a battleship or a decommissioned submarine kind of thing?
Yeah, all that stuff sounds really awesome, and I want to say that I'm into it, but I have never been to any of those things.
No?
They sound awesome.
I did a tour of the USS Iowa, I think it was. I
Yeah.
think it was a sub. I can't remember. It's been a while. It's in California. And
Okay.
it's claustrophobic as hell. I don't know how those guys
Really?
live in those submarines underwater for months at a time or weeks at a time, whatever it is. Like, good
Yeah.
Lord. That takes some. That to me is like the most brave thing you can possibly do. Being part of a sub.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. It's awesome for them. Hey, it's been a hell of a week.
It has.
We miss you, Jacob. We'll see you next week when you get back. But it hasn't been as bad as a lot of weeks. This has been one of those weeks that has been just sort of a quiet political week. Not a lot's happened aside from some stuff in Maine that happened where they finally figured out who their candidate's going to be. Some primaries are going on, but nothing big.
As far as Trump 2.0 is concerned,
Yeah.
quiet week.
Yeah, somewhat quiet
Yeah.
week. We are seeing some of the beginnings of what we're seeing as their propaganda machine. They're starting to put out some information to see what sticks, some trial and error kind of stuff, which we'll get into here a little bit. We're going to get into sort of the Save Act propaganda we're seeing. There's some Red Scare propaganda. We're going to go into that a little bit, what that was like. We're also going to talk a little bit about how this really isn't political. It actually hurts people, the crap that's going on right now. And there's some really need for accountability before it hurts too many people in our country, where we're really hurting Americans, we're hurting our neighbors. And there seems to be a disconnect, I think, for a lot of MAGA folks and a lot of Republicans about the damage they're causing in our country. So we're going to go into that a little bit too. But first, before we get in there at all, let's talk about. I feel like we should take a victory lap a little bit. Pat ourselves on the back. I know, go figure. But like we turned around a podcast episode last week, and half an hour after the speech ended, Trump's diarrhea speech that he did on voter fraud in our country, and I feel like we hit it on the nose.
Yeah.
We did quick research. We sort of had a quick assessment of what we saw reading through some of the documents he pointed to versus what he said. And then we threw things through ChatGPT. And I think over the last week, we've seen it play out as people actually dove into it farther, almost exactly what we said last week. Not that, I mean, a lot of other pundits and political, folks saw the same shit because it wasn't hard to see through. But what were some of the big takeaways from last week that we've seen played out in terms of this, the SAVE Act and this push for the SAVE Act, but more so the disinformation that Trump put out there compared to what he said? Like, he was insinuating all this fraud had happened, but when you actually looked at the files that he gave, it just wasn't there.
Well, I think what you just said is really the big takeaway this week that I got. Once everybody had a chance to digest, right? Had a chance to read through exactly what was posted. Most people came to the same conclusion we did, that this does not say what he says it says, or that he claims it says, right? Particularly as it relates to election fraud and some sort of deeply or well thought out reasoning behind why we needed to implement the SAVE Act as part of a broader reform package in terms of voting. But I think the number one takeaway for me from this week, to answer your question, kind of pointedly, has just been that the documents, as we read them live, 10, 15, 20 minutes after he gave the speech and told the world about him, everybody else basically came to the same conclusion we did.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and actually, they found even more stuff. Like, one of the things I found most funny, ironic, I guess, is there's some information in there about Russia's interference.
Yeah.
In the election system, like in the election process, especially going into 2022 or 2020, that outlined that they took current narratives out there and and highlighted them and pushed these narratives of fraud that wasn't actually happening, but they took those stories and those conspiracies and they amplified them in order to undermine the legitimacy of the election.
Right.
And it literally said it in the documents, and it literally was almost verbatim what Trump said during the campaign and after the campaign that led to January 6th.
Right.
And it is almost like a clear indictment of the bullshit.
Right.
If you bothered to read the fine print. And I think that's what gets me the most, though, and worries me the most, is they were confident putting that shit out there, knowing people wouldn't read the fine print.
Yeah.
And there's all of us here in this little world that see this shit all the time, and we're paying attention. But how many people in your everyday, life actually bother to read the fine print? And how often do people like us, or I'm looking at like Jessica's on here, and we have some other folks that are on here, like how often do they interact with everyday people where they actually get this word across, or we're all in our own bubble just saying this guy's dumb, these guys are stupid? And how often do people like, neighbors actually hear that it's all bullshit? Or do they just hear Trump said that we've had massive fraud and he proved it through classified information that was released yesterday?
Well, we spent a lot of time talking about echo chambers.
Right.
Right. And that's really what it comes down to, is such a significant portion of the American population, especially older, whiter American population, gets a sort of siloed version of the news, of reality.
Right.
And
we're
that's,
seeing that right
well,
now.
yeah, that's what it boils down to, right?
Well, Terry here on the thing says, I don't think any of these people watched the January 6th testimony. Like,
right. Well,
exactly.
That's, yeah.
It's maddening. He's absolutely right.
If I recall correctly, Fox News didn't cover, didn't even carry most of those hearings.
Yeah.
So if you were a normal Fox News, I just mean normal in the sense that if you were to get news about politics or current events, that you would get it from Fox News. If that describes you, you didn't get any coverage at all of January 6th. That's absolutely true.
Right. And later on today, we're going to go in to why in 2026 at this moment in time, that's not an acceptable excuse anymore.
Right.
Because we're going to talk about the damage that it has caused. And if they don't know about it, that's on them. But we're seeing that play out. And one of the things that I think a lot of people, even those of us in this bubble, I think we know it exists, but we haven't seen it this clearly before, is that what this was last week was really the beginning of a propaganda campaign. Like almost immediately, my Facebook thread, I delete all my posts after a while. When I post something political, I delete it after about a week because I don't want to get caught in that bubble. And I want to see like all the politics that get shown up if you don't have a solid algorithm of just Democrat stuff. And so I delete all my posts. And as a result of that, I get a lot of right-wing stuff that just shows up because I don't have, and sometimes I go in and comment on that crap. So it shows up even more. And you saw it. You could see it very clearly. All these names I didn't recognize that had 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 10,000 followers suddenly showed up in my feed that were clearly not like regular people. Like it's clearly some kind of profile that's been created to push. It's sort of like a Iowa Standard kind of national thing. Mm-hmm. And suddenly it was all the exact same talking points. All about voter fraud. All about, China having printed ballots, which wasn't even a thing. Wasn't even any
bamboo ballots, right? Remember the bamboo ballots?
The bamboo ballot, yeah. So that all came back. It was the burn bags, all that kind of shit came back in again. But none of that was in the documents last week.
Right.
But because Trump hinted at all that shit, suddenly people are talking about it and they're acting like it's real.
Right.
And then you call them out on it and online, and they'll argue with you, and you're like, show us a document where it says that, and they stop talking to you, and they just want to keep the narrative going, right?
Yeah, right.
So we're seeing that. We're seeing that heavy because they really want to get this thing through. Either they want to get it passed, or as we said yesterday, they want to have the excuses. If it doesn't pass, then they can say, well, we had fraud because we didn't pass it, and therefore we're going to cancel the elections, or we're going to say they're illegitimate, or Georgia's not going to count, all the kind of crap they're already hinting at as we go. It's interesting because somebody like you mentioned earlier that old white scare tactic. I call it the boomer scare tactic. You look all nice and relaxed, by the way, today. You sit in a different chair today? You're in like a...
Oh, yeah.
You got one of those like barrel chairs. You're not like in your desk chair. Look all chilled.
I'm not going to endeavor to show you or the audience the chair because that would involve
require a lot of stuff, yeah.
and all that. So,
So,
yeah, very comfortable. Thanks for noticing. Yeah.
well, let's go into a little bit on the propaganda side of it. The other big thing we're seeing, in addition to the voter fraud stuff, we're seeing this sort of anti-communism Red Scare movement again. We mentioned that earlier. Jessica's commenting on here. She thinks it's so fucking stupid. I agree. It's just so dumb.
The chair or
not the Red Scare.
Got it.
Not the red chair. The Red Scare kind of stuff. And I was wondering, Kellen, I need to go grab my beer. We started and I didn't have my beer, so I gotta go grab a beer. Can you get us started a little bit? I'll listen from a distance. What the Red Scare was, what McCarthyism was, and I call this the boomer scare. This is like the boomer tactic. They're going after boomers because that's what they were scared on back when they were kids, and they were taught like communism bad kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I'm not arguing with that, but this is the tactic they're using with the DSA movement right now, saying they're communists. So can you give us a little bit of background with your American politics background? I know it's not something you taught extensively, but give us a little detail on that.
Yeah, I can do a bit of that. So yeah, with the I do. I would love a cider. The McCarthyism piece, though, really starts. I guess the best way to describe it is a period of paranoia, a period of fear, a period of widespread accusations that are levied against political opponents of the right across America. And it was really late 40s, early 50s where this all kicks off. But the primary figure in all of it is a senator named Joseph McCarthy. And he would use these wild, unsubstantiated, really out there allegations about all sorts of people that he deemed less than politically, ideologically, and this ended up blacklisting. There was a whole thing in terms of Hollywood, a blacklist in Hollywood of people thought to be communists. But nonetheless, the idea here was suppress left-wing ideology, suppress people sympathetic to left-wing politics, and ultimately do so with these sort of smear campaigns, right? And McCarthy, in particular, was really good in the sense that he was effective at it, at accomplishing his goals,
Right.
using this tactic. But he was so effective because he was able to use the strings of power in the federal government, in particular in Congress, through hearings.
Right.
Through congressional hearings. And that's how McCarthy was able to wield power, because he knew how to whip a scandal up in the newspapers, on the radio, in the news, in the headlines, so on and so forth, and how to use that to his political advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
So what a lot of people don't know in that same time frame is we also had something called the Lavender Scare. This is the exact same folks. It's the exact same timeline, and it was this sort of gutting of anyone that was suspected of being LGBTQ plus in government during that exact same time. So it wasn't just the Red Scare. It was all these different groups being sort of ejected from government. We're seeing that already. So many people got outed already. Not outed in that sense, but like kicked out of government positions simply because they don't align perfectly with Trump. It's the exact same kind of authoritarian playbook, and it's all fear tactics that, frankly, our parents grew up on, and sadly. And so now when they bring this back in again, it's easy. It's an easy, like, I remember having arguments with my father about this. He's like, what do you think I am, a communist? Because I wanted, like, public schools to be funded. And I'm like, that's not communism, Dad. And like, but that's what he saw because that's what he was sort of trained on for years through this McCarthyism, through the Red Scare, all that kind of stuff when he was growing up. And they're using that playbook again, primarily because of these DSA candidates winning across the country, winning their primaries. And because it's a highly Democrat districts, they're probably going to win their elections as well, the generals. And so they're saying, well, these DSA candidates who are Democrat socialists are also communists because they're just making that leap.
Right.
Do you mind? You're the the poli-sci guy. Can you explain the difference between a DSA person and a communist?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, not even just in terms of individuals, in terms of a person, but just in terms of what communism versus democratic socialism is. Socialism and communism are sort of related, but definitely not identical concepts. Communism, especially in its purest sense, is an economic system in which the government owns the means of production. What that means is you don't have a stock market where you have public ownership of stock that's bought and traded and sold on the open market, and you don't have private ownership. Right. Everything is owned by the government, and everyone in the country, in some way, shape, or form, works for the government, right? That's what communism is total state control, not state like state by state, but state like the country, the nation state, nation state control over the economic levers in a country. That's what communism is, okay?
Usually in line with a authoritarian leader of some kind who has either taken power by force or manipulated a government, a democratic system to become an authoritarian.
Right. It almost always, it's very rarely actually been adopted, especially in its purest form, anywhere in human history. But yeah, in order to really get it to that point, you would almost certainly need elements of authoritarianism.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, especially if your starting point is democracy. Right. It's really hard to convince people that that's the way to go, right? Anyway, nonetheless, they're using that word, communism, as a scare tactic because the democratic socialists that you see, and some of them are kind of batty. They're like, they're out there.
Yeah.
They have some really crazy ideas in terms of like no prisons and no punishments for murder and this, that, and whatever. But those are sort of isolated individual candidates, and you can, for every one of those, turn around and say, look at there are people in the Republican Party who you would say are extremists in a similar sense, right? So, but setting that aside, a democratic socialist is not a communist, and communists don't tend to be happy in the Democratic Party because even a democratic socialist is more of well, think about it this way. The U.S., by and large, is already a society that you could describe as democratic socialist because it has socialist elements, like the fire department and public works departments that build and maintain roads and highways, infrastructure, the sewers, so on and so forth, right? The list goes on and on and on. And then we have a capitalist society.
Right.
And the democratic socialists, those that are in the U.S., they're not interested in ripping out those capitalist elements.
No, yeah,
that's I guess a long-winded way to get to that's the fundamental understanding of why a communist is not a democratic socialist. A democratic socialist is not a communist.
And you can bring it even farther over a little bit to understand it even better. I'm a big regulated capitalism opponent. Like I do support capitalism. I'm not an anti-capitalist, but I'm an anti-unregulated capitalist.
Yeah, with rules.
People are greedy.
Yeah, there needs to be rules.
Yeah, and on top of that, there are certain things in our country that have to be social programs. They just have to be.
Right.
Otherwise, you get massive inequality. You get massive.
Right.
Transportation breaks down. The economy breaks down. So there's pieces of our structure of our country that have to be funded by government programs. But even then, those are contracted out to companies to build. You know what I mean? Like there are some programs that we run, but other stuff we contract out. Like the building of highways, those are construction companies that bid on.
Well,
those.
even as fundamental government elements as things like the police department and the fire department and whatever, they buy equipment.
Right.
They have to buy vehicles. They have to have those vehicles get oil changes and maintained and repaired and fixed and so on and so forth.
And it's a balance based on where you're at in the country, what you're doing, how much funds you have, how many people are impacted by it. You get to a place like New York City, and there's so many people in such a dense area, you have to get along.
Yeah.
You have to have social programs there that have safety nets that are run by the city, in order for the city to function because it's so
Right.
damn dense, right? Out here in the middle of nowhere, which I'm proud to call it the middle of nowhere. I love living in the middle of nowhere. You don't need that. It's not as important, with the exception of certain things like public schools. We can't afford to keep our own public schools going if it was privatized. We're too small. We don't have enough resources to do it. So we need a state that helps to fund that, helps to give us equity and education across the state. And so we have that balance, right? And some places are different than others. Rural has different needs. Cities have different needs. And we have some variation of a social capitalist, regulated capitalist program.
Right.
And then that's the whole point of the freaking state legislature and
Right.
Congress. They determine what's needed where, representing us to do that.
Right.
Which is the core of why they call it democratic socialists, is because
Right.
people are voting for it. I'm not a democratic socialist.
Yeah,
I'm not,
no, neither am I.
but I'm happy that
yeah.
they're in the party. I don't mind that they're
Yeah.
on the far left of the party. Like,
Yeah.
I think they bring some really good ideas. They point out a lot of problems
Yeah.
that need to be addressed, and we work on it to find solutions together. We call them out on bullshit stuff that's not going to work that they think will work, and they call us out on bullshit that's not working.
Well, the big emphasis that they bring to the table in terms of the broader tent of the Democratic Party is really that emphasis on inequality, income inequality
Right.
in particular. And I think that that is one of the key crutch issues of our times, or
Right.
crucial issues of our times, is income inequality. Because the last time it was this bad, we had some really bad economic consequences as a result of that.
Right.
And if you just look back, if you're a student of history and you look back through history, you see also all sorts of examples of societies that once income inequality started getting out of control, or getting to a point where you reached a particular threshold, you were at a rough spot, and it was bad news bears after that. So nonetheless, I think that's an element that the democratic socialists bring to the table for the Democratic Party in the broad tent sense is bringing that issue, that conversation to the forefront.
I think one of the reasons it works is a scare tactic, though, and I think this is that really big rural conversation. And it's something that Republicans have abandoned, so I think it is an opportunity for us to take up personally. And a lot of Democrats don't agree with me on this. There's this concept that came out of Poland during those years that was anti-communist, during the times, roughly the time when the wall fell in Germany, that kind of era, post-World War II, called subsidiarity. Have you heard of that concept before?
Subsidiarity.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's this idea that local control first.
Okay.
If people can take care of it themselves, you let them take care of it.
Yeah. No,
Now,
I can get behind that. Yeah.
But if it doesn't work and they can't take care of it, you take it up a level, right? And the next higher level takes care of it. And if they can't take care of it, then he takes it up a level. And on the very larger level, civil rights is a clear one on that, like, because you get a lot of these smaller communities that don't have experience working with different groups, things like that, and so they discriminate. And so if there's people in those communities that have their rights, taken away, then it goes up a level. And so, like, civil rights at the national level makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Highways, interstate highways for economic transportation, that makes sense at that national level. Our military makes sense at a national level.
Yep.
But there's certain things at the local level that make sense too for us to have control of. And that's changing in turn. You want to talk about like party swaps, what do you call it, realignments? I feel like there's a real big opportunity for Democrats to take on that idea of subsidiarity. It's not one or the other. It's not local control or federal control. It's this idea that we take it local and then we move it up the ladder as needed, but we keep local control whatever we can. That's something Democrats don't tend to use. It's something that a lot of, I've noticed that DSA candidates don't do either. They think one size fits all kind of shit, and I definitely disagree with that. After living in Texas, living in Iowa, having worked in New York City, one size does not fit all. And so we have to be able to take control of our own education systems, our own economic systems as much as possible at the local level, and then go higher after that. That's my take. That's something I've always believed in. But, there's a lot of people who don't agree with that.
Are you, what you're saying, or the claim I guess you're trying to make here is that Democrats as a whole, or the party, should take that perspective up more clear? I guess what I'm trying to understand is the claim you're trying to make in terms of, or the critique. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you
I think I'd like to see the Dems take on the idea of subsidiarity as a approach where it does work in New York City. And Mamdani does work in New York City really, really well. That's what they need. It's a 10 million person community. I don't remember how big the city is now up there, but
Yeah.
they need that because that's what it takes to govern and to make that society function
Right.
in that community. And they need to take it up levels or keep it local in that sense, in that way. And in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, it's different. We need to have a different type of governance. But so this concept of subsidiarity works because you have different things in different places based on what the needs are at the local level, and you take it up a level based on if you're able to meet it or not. That's the idea of local control, which is Republicans ran on forever. Democrats were like big federal government, big spending, big programs that are, change the world kind of stuff. And Republicans were always like, keep it local. We need to have control of it. But
I
that
hear what you're
no longer
saying.
is the case, I don't feel like.
No, you're right. And ultimately, I think what you're trying to say without saying it is, and this is the term they used to use, is states' rights. That was the term that people would throw around, particularly during the era of during the civil rights era, a little bit before that, a little bit after that. The way that they couched the conversation about civil rights, about equality, about race, and all those conversations that we were having as a nation at that time, was couched in the language of a states' rights framework. Right. And if you were to ask, like I'm just gonna label a whole group of people, like the Civil War apologists, or the people who are like, that was the war of northern aggression, right? The types of people who head down that pathway. The rhetoric that they use is basically, or the way that they justify it is, it was a war about states' rights, and the obvious immediate follow-up is states' rights to do what?
Mm-hmm.
But
which was in their succession documents.
Then they start getting
Right.
start getting uncomfortable.
To have slaves.
But but that So ultimately, though, there's a long history, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, in terms of that understanding, because it's a very unique part of America in terms of its governance system, but also in terms of democracies worldwide, federalism and the concept of layered organizational structures with different levels of power. So you have a municipality housed in a county, housed in a state, housed in a federal government. That is a unique concept. I mean, in other democracies, they have layers like that. But the way we distribute power in the U.S. is very unique.
And Republicans have recently started to tear that apart.
Oh yeah,
they put in all kinds of regulations on counties and
cities. They used to be the party of states' rights,
right?
And now they're not.
Yeah.
No, they want the federal government to step in and tell states what to do now.
Right. Yeah. By the way, shout out to Jacob Fry. I haven't talked to him in a long time. He's watching today. I don't know if he's up or if he's here in Mount Pleasant or he's up at UNI or what these days. I haven't checked in with him in a long time. Same thing with Casey Conrad. Shout out. Good to have you guys on. Great comments. Check out, if you're watching right now, check out the thread. There's a lot of good stuff going on in the comments section there. Those are all campaigns that are happening right now in real time. Like you see it, you see a lot of money being put into social media, to Fox News talking points, and having those counters is important. But I also think they're becoming less effective than they used to be. People are sort of seeing through that crap a little bit.
I don't know.
No?
See, I don't know. I'm old enough now to have heard that talking point for a very long time.
Okay.
I've heard since I have been interested in politics, which honestly was the first election cycle that I can remember, like everything or a lot of things that happened during that cycle, was the 2000 cycle.
Oh, sure.
And I remember things that happened in the 96 cycle. I remember the Monica Lewinsky scandals. I remember a lot of the second part of Bill Clinton's term. But the first election I actually sort of paid attention to was 2000, and then the other one was 2004.
Right.
But So I've been since those election years been paying attention, and ever since I started paying attention to politics, so 20 whatever plus years, I've always heard
That it's not effective anymore.
that
Or what part?
well, another way to think about this is in political science they study the crap out of this, and they try to understand how effective is negative campaigning,
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yep.
right? Because that's ultimately what you're talking about is the
Right.
mudslinging and that sort of
Undermining
concept.
federal elections, Red Scare. That's the kind of crap we're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
It seems to be what they're going to be leaning
Right.
on for this. It's as you brought up last week or 2 weeks ago, it's the migrants, in caravans making their way toward the border that just didn't really exist. It's the various scare tactics that they're using.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the Red Scare seems to be the latest and greatest tactic, I think.
Well, yeah, and I guess another way to think about this is, do you think, Mike, here's a question for you, that Americans or American society has as a whole become more or less skeptical as a population given the widespread adoption and use of things like social media and AI? So do you think we are more or less skeptical and therefore more or less gullible, or more or less difficult, or more challenging to pull one over?
You
I don't
want
know.
my honest
You know
answer
what
on
I'm-
that?
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, you want my honest answer?
Yeah.
Because I have a bunch of answers for that one, but I think the one
Okay.
that really is probably at the deepest in the heart here is that there's so much crap now out there, slop,
Yeah.
just bullshit that gets put out there by everybody, including Democrats at times. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, not nearly I think at the level, but that it becomes really easy to justify your own political perspective with whatever's out there, because you can always say, well, that's just bullshit. That stuff online is propaganda. There's just so much crap you don't know what's true or what's not true anymore without doing some massive research into stuff.
Right.
That you can say, you know what? That's just bull crap you heard from some propagandists on the left side. And so they can just use that as an excuse not to believe it. And it just becomes another talking point they can have to just reinforce their own perspective. And I think you see that a lot more than that. I've never seen it this much before. It's like, oh, that's just propaganda you heard from the left. Whenever I bring stuff up online, I actually have citations. That's just propaganda. You don't know if that's true or not. Who gave you those citations? And so I think it's just become an excuse. There's so much crap. It's become an excuse for people to ignore it all and just carry on with racist, sexist, heterosexist perspectives that are wrong, in my opinion, and mean and harmful to people without really feeling any kind of accountability or guilt for their votes or their actions. That's my perspective. What do you think?
I don't know. It's kind of deep.
Yeah, a little bit.
Got a little deep there, Mike.
Well, I want to go deep a little bit on this shit, because actually that's been something that's bothering me this week. There's
Yeah.
been a lot of conversations that I've had online with people, with friends even. I had a conversation the other day about someone's perspective on LGBTQ plus people, right? And I know this is a topic a lot of Democrats don't like to touch because they think that we talk too much about trans people. We don't talk about it. The Republicans talk about it more than Democrats do.
Are your kids are probably too old for Encanto,
The movie?
the movie?
Yeah, great movie. No, they watched it.
Did you watch it?
I watched it. Yeah,
Your
yeah.
kids
It's a good
were-
movie. Why is this? We don't know about Bruno. Is
Yeah,
that the
we
one?
don't talk about
We don't talk
Bruno.
about Bruno.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't really
Should
talk
I
about.
sing? Should we sing?
We don't talk about Bruno. I don't know the song. I don't. You would know because you have kids that are probably singing it all the time. But someone told me the other day, like their religion tells them that there's only two genders, and also that men were meant to marry women and women marry men, and that's what their religion says. And it's not personal. And they tell me that because my kids are both LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
And they're out, by the way. I'm not outing them. My youngest is very trans and made sure everybody knew that from about 8th grade.
Yeah.
So I'm not, that's not new news. And the thing is, they always say it's not personal to you though. It's my own religious belief.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not personal to you. It's not personal. And I'll tell you what, fuck you. It is. It's personal. And I got a story to share with you on that. My kid lost their civil rights here in Iowa a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
For those of you who are not from Iowa, the state passed a law that took away gender identity as a protected civil right in the state of Iowa. So by removing that, people can now, the government specifically, can discriminate against my kid in terms of issuing licenses, in terms of low-income services, any kind of government service. They can discriminate against my kid openly, simply because they're
and I think that also
trans.
means, correct me if I'm wrong, though, that non-governmental services or non-governmental organizations can also discriminate, and nobody can seek restitution for that in a
Right.
court because it's not recognized
from the
protected.
perspective of a civil right violation.
Right.
There's other ways they can still be charged and shit and get restitution from other civil rights that are discriminated against. But that particular one, if someone says, "Well, I just don't like you because you're transgender," so I'm not going to rent you an apartment.
Right.
Absolutely, they can.
Yeah.
That's very much a thing. And
Yeah.
so my kid, who graduated 2 years ago now, almost two graduation cycles ago, should have graduated last year. But all this shit was going on in Iowa, all this really anti-trans movement stuff, especially by our state legislature, that one night they came to me and said, somewhere around January of last year, and said, "Dad, I want to graduate early and get out of Iowa." And when we dove down into it, one of the biggest reasons was they didn't feel like they belonged in our community, right?
Yeah.
And that said, like, that's personal.
Yeah.
My kid, and I'm going to brag about my kid. I'll let you. I'm proud of your kids too. They're awesome. And I love hearing your stories of your kids. I'm going to brag about my kid for a second.
Yeah.
My kid,
Go
despite
for it.
graduating a year early, was a salutatorian.
Yeah.
My kid was a 2-time first team all conference goalkeeper for the girls team, and they're a trans man. That's their thing. So they had to play on the girls team because that's the law for high school, and so they did, and first team all conference 2 years in a row as a sophomore and a junior. They were in choir, they were in band, they were section leader, they were a soloist and stuff. They were a lead in the high school play. They were involved. They volunteered every week in our community, and our community rejected them. They voted for a man in Jeff Shipley and in the turd from Oskaloosa. What the hell's his name? Our senator. I can't always blank on his fucking name. What's his name? Anyway, they voted for him. I can't remember his name. He's not worth remembering, honestly. He's such a turd. But they voted for these guys that use trans issues as their stepping stool for power to win elections because they...
Dickey?
Dickey, yeah. Adrian fucking Dickey. He's a fucking dick. His name is so appropriate.
He's a Dickey.
Yeah. But they ran on this shit. They constantly talked about it, even though trans people have no impact on 99.9% of people's lives.
Yeah, they pushed the culture wars thing really hard.
Oh, hard. And what they don't understand is this has an impact on people's lives. And I can tell you from my own experience, I lost a year of my kid. Their senior year, at the peak of where they should have been in terms of like soccer and music and all the things they're involved in.
Well, why would they want to hang out in this state that's just full of people spewing that kind of vitriol and that hate?
Yeah.
You know?
And they didn't want it. They were ready to leave. And by the time March rolled around that year, they had made the right decision. They sort of verified it. So we had to get especially approved to graduate early, and they did. And by the way, they went to Vermont, and they're doing fucking great.
Yeah.
Live in a rural setting, by the way. They love rural life.
But
and
they shouldn't have had to flee the state.
No, they
to
love
feel
Iowa.
Comfortable.
Yeah. But by the way, they love their friends. They love the school. The public school is great. Their teachers are great in general.
Yeah.
A couple of them were assholes, but wouldn't use the right pronouns, whatever.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And they couldn't. Some of them couldn't because the fucking law. They passed that law a year before that. They did not feel welcome to be themselves in our state. And I'm telling you right now, and I'm bragging on my kid. I realize this, but we lost a fucking salutatorian.
Yeah.
Of the class above them. They would have been valedictorian had they graduated in normal. They had to take a bunch of extra classes and got a B in one of them.
Right.
So they were only salutatorian, right? They lost that as a kid. They lost that employee, that Iowan is no longer an Iowan. They left the state because of that hate.
Yeah.
Ooh, they left the state because of the hate. But personal for me, though, is I lost a year of my kid. I was so excited about their senior year, and that fucking hurt to lose your kid. And I am lucky. Because most trans kids, 20% of trans people attempt suicide at some point in their life.
Wow.
I don't mean to. I mean, I should have given you guys a trigger warning, I guess. But like that happens. That's a thing, and this is why my wife and I have been very proactive in terms of like supportive and listening and finding the right counselors and therapy, all that kind of stuff for our kids, because that happens all the time, and it's sad. We had a young person commit suicide in 2017 in Fairfield, a trans kid. I had another story of after I've talked with one of my colleagues when I was working up in Cedar Rapids, and he wasn't really know much about the issue, and I talked to him about my kid and all that kind of stuff, and he's driving home one day at night, and he sees someone sitting on a railroad tracks, and so he pulls over, and he stops and goes and talks to that person, and it turns out this person's sitting waiting for a train to come, and he's trans, and he tells a story about how like his parents didn't accept him and his community doesn't accept him. And he gave the whole rundown, and thank God my colleague saw this person and gave him the support he needed and got him off and got him to got him off the railroad tracks and got him to a counselor, and was able to find some support and get the resources he needed.
Yeah.
And like that kind of stuff happens every day. And I had someone tell me it's nothing personal, it's just my religion the other day. And I heard it again on just today. I saw it online. A friend that I grew up with posted the same thing.
Yeah.
God tells me marriage is between a man and a woman. God tells me there's only two genders. 1.7% of all babies born in the U.S. and across the world have multiple sets of genitalia or some variation of genitalia. And that's not even getting into the chemicals and the enzymes and the glands that are also associated with gender. And to say that everyone's born a man and a woman is absolute bullshit. It's not biologically correct. It's not scientifically correct. It's religiously incorrect as well. That's a new thing people have brought up. It's not in the Bible anywhere. It's been politicized, and religions are making it up, especially mostly super Christian pastors are reading propaganda given into them by the Heritage Foundation. And it's harmful to people.
Yeah.
Period. When the president of the United States stands up in every damn speech, including last Thursday when he spoke and he started bragging about himself, and he says, we stopped gender for all, or I think is how he said it this time, but he also called it transgender for all during the State of the Union speech. Like, what the fuck is that to start with? There's no such thing as transgender for all. That's not a movement. That's not a thing. It's just simply saying there are transgender people. Respect the fact that there's transgender people. That's all this movement was. And they've taken it to be like this big attack on God and religion and their churches and their communities and shit like that. And they're doing it for political gain. Point is, it harms people. I'm sorry, I'm going on a little bit of tangent here, but it is personal to people.
Well, yeah, and that's, I think, really what you're trying to say is, so often, especially in rural areas, you hear from people who say, I don't do politics, right? It's not personal. I don't do politics, whatever it may be.
Right, right.
Or like they say, like you were just saying, people might say, it's just what I believe. It's my personal beliefs and so on and so forth. But ultimately, in the type of society we live in, and we all got to get along, right? And in our society, we either have to allow each other to live our lives the way we want to live them, or we don't,
right?
And that's really what it comes down to. So, because once you start putting those sort of guidelines in and saying only the certain types of people are living the appropriate lifestyle according to the government,
right?
Then you're, and slippery slope is a logical fallacy, but then you're heading down a pathway that I think can get pretty dark pretty quick as a nation state, from a political science point of view. So I don't know.
Terry brings up a good point in the threads here too. By the way, there's a lot of pastors that don't believe that. There's a lot of biblical teaching that doesn't discriminate in that way. Mm-hmm. So what I keep telling people is they're choosing which pastors they listen to. They're choosing to who they take their information from. Yeah, because there's plenty of Christian pastors that are the exact opposite. They're about love, support, all that kind of stuff. Right. So you choose who's going to define and back your perspective, right?
Well, the concept of a hate preacher is a real thing, right? The idea
sure.
that there are leaders of congregations, leaders of even very small religious sects who spew what can only be described as hate.
Right.
In a way for personal gain or whatever it may be, but for whatever reason they're doing it, it's hateful. So
Right.
those are real.
Yeah. And they weren't talking about trans people 20 years ago at church. This
No.
has been something that's pushed by politics, by specifically the Republican Party within churches in the last 5, 6 years, 10 years, really.
Yeah.
They push this narrative harder and harder because they know it works. It scares people. They don't understand it.
Yeah.
But it's even beyond that. Like, people talk about that issue, obviously, is a big one right now. LGBTQ plus issues in general are always one of those sort of pieces.
Yep.
It's been part of it, like we talked about the lavender scare earlier. But a 3-year-old in Maine watched his father gunned down by ICE earlier this week.
Her,
last week.
yeah, the
Yes,
daughter.
right. Yep.
3 or 4, something like that.
Yep.
But yeah, Biddeford, Maine.
Yep.
Is that the one you're referring to?
Case of mistaken identity. It wasn't, and even if it was an undocumented immigrant, fuck you, ICE. Fuck you, Trump. Fuck you, anyone that supports that.
Well,
Because that's not a gunning someone down is not a justifiable response to anything except for having their life threatened by any law enforcement officer.
so
And this was a guy that wasn't even undocumented.
I think the most important thing that's lost in a lot of these conversations, that gets lost in a lot of these conversations, is that cops aren't supposed to kill the guilty people either.
Right. Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Like, that's not supposed to happen.
They're not the judge.
Right,
They're not the
and,
executioner.
like,
they're the apprehender.
We've all watched, like, cop drama shows, Law and Order and The Rookie and SVU and, whatever, right?
Right.
And in all of those, like, if you've watched any of them, if you know anything about how the justice system works, how the legal system works, even just like the bare intro level stuff, that a police officer killing somebody is a really big deal.
Right.
And you're just not supposed to do it. So when it happens, like, you're supposed to have a huge investigation. There's supposed to be internal affairs get involved. Like,
Right.
it's possible that the police officer loses their badge and potentially their freedom, and that there's consequences.
Right.
So on and so forth, right? And it's like, so why would we not expect the exact same level of scrutiny for ICE?
Right.
Because that same level of scrutiny is not happening. The ICE agents who did what they did to Renee Good,
Right.
Alex Preddy, the ICE officers that are still out there and have not been held accountable for any of this is mind-boggling to me. Because in any other law enforcement agency, you would immediately have them
Suspended.
Investigation
Investigations.
would be opened immediately.
Yep.
You would collaborate with all layers of government.
No press conferences saying what they did and how they were in the right.
But the
None of that shit.
the county sheriff, the local authorities, the federal authorities, everyone's involved, and they're all cooperating. And instead, what you have every time this happens is a shit show, a narrative, a bullshit attempt to cover it up, and a bullshit attempt to skirt accountability.
Right. And I'm going to take it a step farther, and it might be a little bit politically incorrect. I'm just going to say it right off the bat. We had more U.S. troops killed this week in Iran.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
I get it. You should absolutely support our service members. You should absolutely, like, they gave their life for America. I'm not being disrespectful in that sense, because you look at World War II, you look at Vietnam, you look at different things we have done where we're defending democracy, maybe not Vietnam, but we're defending against fascism. We are fighting against worthy causes, or fighting for worthy causes, right? This is not one of those.
No.
We have no fucking clue why we're in Iran.
Nobody.
It's not to prevent the nuclear bomb.
No.
That was bullshit. He keeps saying it. That's complete and utter bullshit. We know it's bullshit. His own freaking intelligence community said there was no threat of a fucking nuclear bomb a week before we went to war against them. Like, it's a lie. We don't know why we're there. We've accomplished no objectives we set out to do from the very beginning of the war.
You remember, I'm old enough to remember when they said we had to do this to protect the people of Iran.
Right.
Regime change. We needed to get rid
I'm
of
old
the
enough to
Ayatollah.
remember when it's been that long, right? Yeah. Right. But that's my point. Is like people have died. Kids have, not kids, young men and women, I don't know if any women have died, but young soldiers have died serving our country for what?
Right.
Maybe there's money exchange in hands. There's definitely manipulation of the stock market as the war starts and stops and starts and stops. And people are making a lot of money because they're disinvesting or investing in stock before announcements are made. We've seen that. You can see it in real fucking time. So for these people to make money, we've lost this many soldiers. They have to give their lives for Donald Trump and his family to make money. Like, is that what this is about?
Well, ultimately, Mike, I think that's why this becomes the final legacy of Trump is this Iran debacle, because he's put himself into this quagmire where he has to reach a particular level of, let's call it success, or else it looks like an utter failure. Right. Because the status quo prior to him ripping up the JCPOA in 2018 when Donald Trump did that, the status quo in the JCPOA was cooperation with Iran, investigations at their nuclear sites. Investigations were ongoing. The IAEA had been there several times, so several different sites. Right. There were ongoing disputes about access here and arguments about this, that, and whatever. But by and large, Iran was cooperating.
Right.
And there were all of the elements of preventing nuclear proliferation in place, right? So Trump has to get something better than that, because even getting something as good of that doesn't make any sense. Like, okay, we went to war. Pete Hegseth just this week said it was $38 billion, something like that was his estimation in terms of the cost of the Iran war so far, which I think is a complete utter bullshit.
Which, by the way, is just money.
Right.
These are lives we've lost too.
Right.
That we can't talk about. They're worthless. Like we lost them for no reason.
Well, and the impact, just broadly speaking, on the economy, because we're all dealing with higher gas prices.
Right.
Like that kind of crap, right? It's not even included in those numbers. But either way, regardless of all
and
that.
Tim mentions too, don't forget the cost of people that died in Iran.
Right.
School children on day one.
Right. The body count that isn't U.S. troops.
Right.
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 Which isn't included in the 16 or whatever. And I can't get over that cost, that price tag, not price, but the cost of the war with all of those things. You have to, in exchange, get out of it a set of conditions that is better than what the JCPOA gave us prior to 2018. So that's his problem, and that's why this is going to be his outstanding legacy. Is he can't cut a deal that's worse than that, because if he does, he looks like a complete and utter buffoon.
But here's my take on that: is I don't think anyone cares. I don't think he cares. I don't think his followers care. They'll justify it anyway. But I really don't think he cares. We try to put this big thing on him about how he cares about himself and he's all egotistical. He cares what people think about him.
Well, the more,
sure, but that's like a moral judgment on him, and that does nothing for us.
Well, the more and more people coming out of this White House, at least, have said anything about him, a lot of his motivation is around his legacy.
Well, I think we say that because it's easy to judge people on that.
Yeah,
I don't think that's his main motivation, and I'll stick by this because I look at what his actions are.
Yeah, I would agree.
The guy
with that.
freaking stinks up every room that he walks into, literally. Like he shits his pants. We know this happens. Everyone talks about it. That's his legacy.
Yeah.
You can't get over that. You're always the guy's going to be the shitting president, right?
Yeah, you're the disgusting fuck.
Yeah, he's the one that you don't want to be near in a room because it smells.
Right.
Little kids wrinkle their nose every time they're near him. Like we've seen the videos. Everyone talks about it. It's not a secret that the guy shits his pants constantly, right? That's his legacy. You can't get worse than that, right? What he really cares about, though, and I think he's willing to do, and here's the thing. Most people would. The guy is raking in. He literally, it's proven. They came out with documents. Billions of dollars for his family.
In the first year back.
Tell me this, Kellen. Would you walk down Main Street, Mount Pleasant, buck ass naked for an hour around the block if someone gave you $1 billion.
Absolutely.
In a fucking heartbeat,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
I would do it, and this is going to be weird to say, but I would do it with a fucking bungee cord tied to my dong.
Well, you're getting
next
all
to
weird.
a tractor.
You-
I don't give a fuck. $1 billion.
Nobody asked for the extra
I know,
conditions.
it was too much, right?
That was
But,
too
like,
much.
My point is that there's an extreme you go to for that kind of money.
Right.
For that kind of influence and this fucker will do whatever. He doesn't give a shit if he's shitting in rooms. He doesn't
No.
give a shit if he's gets a bad legacy rap on Iran. Like, he doesn't give a fuck. He's walking away with billions of dollars in cryptocurrency, in stock market manipulation, which that's the problem to me is everyone wants to judge him for some kind of personality trait.
Right.
Personality trait means nothing to the families who just lost their troops. Their young family members have died in Iran. Whether or not Trump's ego got hurt has no impact on the fact they just lost their kid. It has no impact on the fact that I lost my kid to a year of their senior year of high school. It has no impact on any of that shit. It's all about money.
So I see, like we always come around to this point, and we talk about this every week at some point about how ultimately it all comes down to follow the money, right? And who's benefiting and so on and so forth. And we beat that dead horse every week.
Every week. But it's real.
It's absolutely real. And then I see people like Joe Rogan, influencers, whatever, people in the manosphere, quote unquote. A lot of the reason why Trump won the 24 election, a lot of those voices of that movement backing out, especially around Iran. Like, hey, this is not what we signed up for. You said you would end forever wars and this, that, and whatever.
Right.
Plus add in Epstein, and you have a lot of people fleeing that ship.
Right.
And that's really from the like headline perspective, from the like punditry, right? From the influencer sphere. So are we going to see that actually translate in this midterm election where people are going to equate, okay, my vote matters here because I don't want to vote for somebody who's just going to enable this president to do all this terrible shit that I voted him not to do? Are we actually going to see all of this play out and have a blue wave?
I think enough people will feel that way. I think enough people have morals. I think enough people realize that.
I guess before you kind of launch into your answer there, I just want to add, don't be what are you hearing is what I'm asking versus speculating.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a great question.
Or I mean, it's okay to say I haven't heard a lot of MAGA people or MAGA light or Republican adjacent people talking about this, but that's an okay answer too. But less speculation, more like what is actually going on out there. What do you think?
I personally think that watching the guy gun down a woman in her car, whose tires had clearly turned to the right. That you can try to change the narrative of that, but that made it through the bubbles, right? Across every news outlet for weeks. Then a couple weeks later, the guy gets gunned down in the street while trying to protect a woman. His gun is clearly not out. It's in his pants, and he hasn't reached for it, and he gets gunned down, and that's very clear, and that bursts through the bubble as well. Countless stories of like this guy in Maine who got gunned down by ICE. I think there's enough evil that's happened, pure, just sadistic evil that's happened because of the people in charge right now. That there's enough votes out there to win potentially the House and the Senate this upcoming election. I think it's that
far.
I would go that far. But unless people forget shit over the next 3 months, which I think, but you keep gas prices up high enough and all that shit. I think it's gonna be hard to forget the pain that comes with all that stuff. And it's a midterm election against the sitting president. That's all the stuff is lining up to where there's a good chance the House and the Senate will be overtaken. And the fucker will be impeached and gone.
Well, you spent some time in Texas, good old Tejas. And that's the white whale of the Democratic Party.
Yes.
They're always talking.
Every
time.
This
is the cycle. This is the cycle.
Every time, but there's
is
never
this the year,
been
Mike?
enough.
Is this it?
Here's the thing. Every time they say it, It's never true. You know, I remember there's a whole episode with Jon Stewart who just laughed at it the whole time. Like, you guys say they're purple every time. They're never purple. Texas never purple, right? This time,
this is the bold prediction
I
time.
am because what people don't understand is in Texas Texas was Mexico. You're zooming me in. Hi, I'm right here.
Bold prediction.
Bold prediction.
From Mike Heaton.
Yeah, I live in Texas 10 years. Okay, in Texas, you got to remember that they were Mexico. Okay, so people didn't immigrate. Spanish-speaking families, especially, didn't immigrate to Texas. They lived there fucking first,
Right.
And then it became the U.S. Then it, for a very short time, became the Confederacy. At one point in time, it became Texas, and then they were like, "Oh, we can't do this by ourselves. Let's join the United States."
Yeah, better off.
Yeah, it's really funny to hear them talk about it. Like, we're like, no, you fuckers, you couldn't
the
survive
Texas
without us.
civics classes.
Right, yeah, it's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But I do know that when my kid came home at school, he had a big Texas flag written on, he drew and colored it in on one side, and he flipped it over to a little tiny American flag on a pole on the other side. They have priorities in Texas for sure. Subsidiarity, right? You like that? I brought it all full circle there, right? So here's the thing.
Yeah.
People don't understand that in Texas, a lot of the Spanish-speaking families are 7th, 8th generation,
Yeah.
right? They've been there longer than most white people
Right.
that speak English,
Right.
right? And they have Spanish heritage and they have Native American heritage. And when it comes to immigration, it's not as clear-cut for them as you would think, because most of them aren't immigrants. They've been there for a long time in their minds. They've done it the right way. And so you keep seeing these trends that surprise everybody, that all these Hispanic families and, Spanish-speaking families, they voted for Trump for some reason. Like, no shit. They're in the oil industry. They're in these other industries that impacts their lives.
Right.
And they're not first and second generation immigrants that'll be impacted by any negative immigration policy. What we're seeing from Trump right now is flat out racism. The policies they're using, how they're going about in implementing those policies, the flat out murdering of people that aren't even undocumented. They're being profiled just because they have dark skin.
Yeah. Is that enough to break through? Is that enough of a
For Texas?
well, I mean, it doesn't
That's
even
your
really
question, right?
Yeah.
Can enough of them, 8th generation
Yeah.
Hispanic Americans, Mexican Americans?
Those statewide Senate and gubernatorial races, they haven't been like super, super close, but they've been pretty close.
Yeah. Tellerico, I think, will win.
Right. So yeah, the question isn't even. It doesn't have to be a landslide shift.
Right.
It just has to be a few percentage points in key demographics, enough to flip a seat.
Well, and you got Paxton running, who has so much baggage. And was just absolutely destroyed in the primary and barely won that. Like, there's a chance the gubernatorial race will flip. There's a chance that the Senate will flip with Tellerico. Tellerico, is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Tellerico.
And I think the problem is it's not a presidential election. If it was a presidential election, it's a fucking blue wave everywhere.
Yeah,
because Texas wins. Like, it doesn't matter if Georgia goes blue. It doesn't matter if Ohio goes blue. It doesn't matter if Pennsylvania goes blue. Texas went blue. Texas goes blue, it's over.
Yeah.
You can't get that back. That's so many freaking. Anyway, we're getting short on time, I think, as we go here. But I think the last little point we wanted to bring up on that is that people are suffering. People are struggling. It does impact. It is fucking personal.
Yeah.
For so many people, and it's more personal than it's ever been in the last couple decades. I think has been dealing with all this crap for a lot of families across the spectrum. The reason it's becoming personal is because somebody is being left unchecked. The President of the United States is going unchecked. The Congress, who's the whole point of checks and balances, Republicans control it, and they're choosing not to check the president, no matter how egregious his misdeeds are.
Yeah.
And even today, they're voting on this. Did you see this? Where they're voting on this anti-corruption thing for stock and trades for Congress people, insider trading.
Actually, I saw 3M was
pushing
bleeding
it, right?
about this on her socials. So.
It's all fucking smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
You know what's not banned? Families from trading.
Yeah.
So you can literally call your wife up, your spouse up, your husband up, and say, "Hey, I just learned
Buy
this.
100
Buy
trades of
100."
this.
Yeah. Which happens, by the way, all the time right now.
Yeah.
They're doing that. You can literally track it, right? That's not being outlawed. They're not having what do they call it? Closed trusts. They're not all this shit.
Blind trust.
Yeah. All these pieces that there's so many loopholes. and yet they're out there saying, hey, we're closing, we're making it so they can't do this insider trading. There's nothing against the President of the United States in there, who's clearly doing it without any hesitation. And that kind of shit is happening right now, and they're lying about it. And they're saying that they're passing these bills in order to look good when it's just all fluff. And they're not holding at the same time the president accountable for anything.
President doesn't need to follow the laws, Mike.
Well, literally, according to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
But that's where the checks and balances come in.
Yep.
He needs to be checked, and he's not being checked. And that's where we come in as voters. If our congressional people aren't doing it, who are currently Republicans,
We got to kick them out.
we have to kick them out. We don't have a choice as human beings. Of
Gotta
any
go.
ethical, whatever, we got it. It's time. And we have to vote. We have to work our asses off this midterm to get him fucking gone.
Yep.
Because it's not going to make it much better because J.D. Vance is a fucking tool. But honestly, I think
Yep.
J.D. Vance can be manipulated if Trump gets tossed. And I think you can probably work with J.D. right now to negotiate it because he just wants power. But like, I think the second he goes, so does Stephen Miller and the racist shit. We'll see.
Yeah, you could at least clean house with JD. He's
Yeah.
still a scumbag. But
He is a complete scum, but he's a manipulable stuff. Like he
Yeah.
just wants power. He wants to save his president of the United States.
a useful idiot.
He's a useful,
whatever.
yeah. He'll do whatever it takes, and he's a fantastic dancer, according to all the memes I'm seeing that you're posting recently
Yes.
too. Like, yeah,
He's incredible.
with that curly
dancer.
hair and
Yeah.
he's-
The hot dog water.
oh yes. Anyway, any
So,
other thoughts on this upcoming?
Final thought
Yeah.
from me is, well, it's not really a thought from me. It's from the comments section. Someone asked if you could give us a good Texas story, Mike,
Oh yeah.
to make us understand Texas. Do you have a favorite Lone Star story, a favorite Tejas adventure, a narrative, a tale
Honestly,
of your times and tribulations in the great state of Texas?
yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. I lived in Colorado for quite a while, in the beauty of the Rocky Mountains.
Colorado is not Texas.
It is not Texas. It actually used to be part of Texas.
Oh,
There's a whole
okay.
strip that went up there, just for the record. The flat, ugly part.
What is
but-
part of the stuff they teach you at Texas high school?
Right, exactly. And are we still live, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Oh, there we are. Yeah, cool. I was watching here. But I'll tell you without hesitation, Texas is one of the most gorgeous states in the country.
Yeah.
It's so fucking big, no one knows it. But we did a lot of camping. We did a lot of exploring the state of Texas. It has the Texas Grand Canyon, known as Palo Duro Canyon. It's stunning.
Mm-hmm.
It has Big Bend. It has so much fucking history. And when people make fun of Texas a lot, how like they keep themselves, they call themselves their own country, all that kind of stuff. You know what? They kind of earn it. It's one of the coolest places I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much diversity. Shit. You want my best story about Texas?
Uh-oh.
When I moved to Texas,
Now he's going.
I was 210 pounds. When I left Texas, I was about 280. If that tells you anything about how fucking good the food is in
That's
Texas.
quite the endorsement.
Oh my God! Yeah, I moved to Iowa. We come here, and my kids move here, and they're in junior high, and my dad, we're sitting there eating, and my son goes, "Dad, Iowa's like the England of food.
Uh-huh.
It's all bland.
Yeah.
It's just really just not good." And I can't believe I'm saying that here because everybody's like, "What about the meatballs? What about the potato salad?" We're like, yeah, you know what? It's bland, people. It really is. I'm not proud of
Yeah.
Iowa food. I'll take a good tenderloin.
Iowa cuisine leaves,
Oh.
I would admit, leaves much to be desired.
It does. There's beauty
Yeah.
of it. There's nostalgia to Iowa cuisine. Don't get me wrong. But like when it comes to spice and flavor and
Yeah.
basically anything, they got barbecue, they got Tex-Mex, they got Mexican food, they got Southern food. They got it all in that one state. They got Southwestern cuisine. It's all different.
Yeah.
Those are all different things I just mentioned right there. They're all different.
Yeah.
And they're all extraordinarily good. And it led to about 70 pounds of gain on that front.
So
So there's happy people down there.
that doesn't help me understand Texas.
No, that's all you need to know.
Because
They don't
what
give
I'm
a fuck about
hearing
you because they
is
have
like-
everything they need right there. That's what you need to know about Texas right there. That's it right there. That's it. They don't give a fuck about anybody else but themselves. So
But,
don't try to understand.
Yeah, it's just because what I hear is like the story of diversity and like a blending of cultures and lots of
Yeah.
different things going on.
That's the ironic part. It's like so fucking diverse.
right.
Yeah.
And so like to me that is a beautiful part of Texas and why Texas is Texas.
It will go purple eventually.
So yeah, it strikes me as odd that they would vote for a movement like MAGA, and
It's a big state.
yeah,
A lot of people live in rural communities or in bubbles, but those bubbles are breaking by the moment. Their lives are breaking. And Democrats are learning how to speak in rural communities better than they used to.
Yeah.
We ignored them for 10 years, 20 years.
yeah.
By the way, Jessica, I don't have a choice. I like my wife. I like sleeping in the same room as my wife, so I have to drink cider. I'm just letting you know. I can't do gluten. It is not good for me. That's all I got. It's not a chick beer, and I don't mind if it is a chick beer. I'm all for all genders. Sorry, Jessica. That's all I got.
Yeah.
I went on my rant. Jacob wasn't here to check me today, so I just went nuts. Thank you.
Yeah, 2 rural white guys today.
Yep. All right, that's all I got. You got anything else? What do you think? What do you think of
No.
Texas or Canada?
Well,
For those, if we don't win and we all need to move, where do we move to in Canada?
well, that's kind of a loaded question.
Okay, well, let me preface that a little more before you disconnect us. Okay.
Okay.
One of the other things that happened this week
Yeah.
was they launched this task force against left extremism and left terrorism.
Yeah.
It to me seems like a precursor to be able to jail anyone and focus
Yeah,
anyone
for
that's left.
ideological purposes.
Yeah, as opposed to actually being terrorists, but like because it was really weird how they put it. But if that were to start happening and people needed to run as fast as they could in order to protect their families, whatever it is, where do we move to in Canada, Kellen?
So, well, that actually is a pretty loaded question because in that scenario, you're like everybody fleeing America and going to Canada would be treated as a refugee and processed through USCIS,
Right.
which is the Citizenship and Immigration Services of Canada. So, yeah, I don't really have that information. That would be processed by your case officer at the border.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Where at the border do we cross?
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does in a sense, but
Are they going to send me over to New Brunswick if I cross in Vancouver?
Yeah, you might end up. Well, yeah, if you, I wouldn't. That's literally the complete opposite side of the country. So I couldn't imagine there.
That's
that
all I know about
inefficient.
Canada. Yeah.
But maybe that to the extent where crossing matters, you might end up settled like near where you end up crossing.
Well, I don't want to. I like Iowa.
Yeah.
We're here to stay for at least for a long time.
Well,
And
I
fight
can
for what we are here.
tell you the food is better.
In Canada?
Yeah.
You got French cuisine, don't you? I
Yes,
forget
a
about
lot of
that.
French
There's
cuisine.
some good French cuisine too.
Yeah.
Although I will say, if you compare it to America cuisine as a whole, not just Iowa.
Like cheeseburgers and pizza.
No, like we have everything, dude. We're the most diverse country in the world. We have every kind of food. It just depends on where you go in the country.
Right.
So I'll take American
Well, we
food
have
over
all
anything.
of that too, and then we also have Canadian stuff.
But you don't have the southwestern shit. You don't have Tex-Mex.
Yeah, we
Sorry, but it's like going to a Chinese restaurant in
Yeah.
Iowa. Like, of course you have a Chinese
Yeah,
restaurant.
it's there, but there's other stuff too.
It's not prominent though. It's not the cultural
But
norm.
it's
to
not
Tex-Mex.
here.
True, not in Iowa.
No.
No, that's true.
don't
We
get it
we,
here, so
we,
you
have
have to
meat,
go
we
to
have
Texas.
meatballs. We have meatballs.
Yeah.
Meatballs and salad that has Snickers in it. I don't
Yeah.
know. Is what it is. Anyway, we're all done. We're at the end. It's been a fun episode of Three Real White Guys podcast. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week.
We will. See you, Mike.
It's up, it's down.